Well, it's 9 o'clock. So, on behalf of the Internet Archive, I would like to welcome you to Enduring Legacy, the Million Book Project turns 20. That's right, in 2001, a Carnegie Mellon professor named Dr. Raj Reddy had an audacious vision. He launched something called the Universal Digital Library, better known today as the Million Book Project. And Dr. Reddy believed that we had within our grasp the ability to master the technology, the economics, the legal regimes, and the social agreements to bring 1 million books online and make them accessible to everyone. So today, on the 20th anniversary of that project, we're going to be looking back. We're also going to be hearing from other projects that were inspired by the Million Books Project. We will see what the impact of bringing millions of books online can be. And perhaps most importantly, we're going to take a look into the future, and we're going to prognosticate in 10 years, where will digital books and digital libraries be? Hello, my name is Wendy Hanamura, and I am the Director of Partnerships at the Internet Archive. We are, for those of you who don't know us, a big nonprofit digital library with millions and millions of collections and items that are free for all. And while we may best be known best for our Wayback Machine, that archive of the web, we also have collections of 28 million digital texts, and that includes 4.6 million digital books. So, working on this event made me wonder, who first conceived of the ebook? And in modern times, take a look at this. In 1936, it was H.G. Wells. He wrote this book, The World Brain. And in it, H.G. Wells posits a world in which there's a connected, free, global encyclopedia that brings about world peace. Then, next in 1945, we have Vannevar Bush. He described Memex, the global brain that would sit there right on top of your desktop, very influential with early computer scientists. Then, in 1971, we see Michael S. Hart, who launches the Gutenberg Project. At this point, he's just a student, and he reaches into his backpack and he pulls out a copy of the Declaration of Independence. He digitizes it and he puts it online, and this is what is considered by many the first public ebook. In 2001, enter Dr. Raj Reddy, who launches the Universal Digital Library, also known as the Million Book Project. This would also be a global project with partnerships in India and China, funding from the National Science Foundation. But the reaction back in 2001 might surprise you. Many people said, well, who in the world would want to read a book on a computer? Today, I think the reaction is, who wouldn't? So it is now my honor to introduce to you the creator, the founder of the Universal Digital Library. Many think of him as the father of modern AI. He's a Turing Award-winning computer scientist, a professor at Carnegie Mellon. And peers will tell you that nobody is more optimistic than Raj Reddy, who really believes in the power of technology to solve some of the world's biggest problems. Here with a brief history of his project, please welcome Dr. Raj Reddy.
Good morning. I first met Brewster 20 years ago through our mutual friend, John McCarthy, my advisor at Stanford. The three of us met at a cafe in San Mateo because that was midway between San Francisco and Palo Alto, so that everybody only had to travel equal distance. Given our mutual interest, Brewster and I, we started collaborating on digitizing books on the Million Book Project. And in 2003, Brewster and Mary Austin joined us on a digital library tour of scanning centers in India. And soon after that trip, I gave a talk. And this is the talk I was able to extract it. I'll quickly go through it just so that you have some background. So the Million Book, go back to the previous slide, please. The Million Book Project had, at Carnegie Mellon, had four people. And besides me, that's in the middle, Jaime Carbonell, Max Shamos, and Gloriana St. Clair. And we had a picture, not at that time, maybe 10 years later, with holding books in the library of different books. And so this is the slide I was able to find. Next slide, please. So the grand challenge was to create access to, universal access to all authored works, all published works online. They don't have to be published, they have to be creative works, instantly available in any language, anywhere in the world, searchable, browsable, navigable by both humans and machines. Next slide, please. We knew even then, this is like trying to build the Great Wall of China. It is not going to be done in 1 year or 10 years. It might take 100 years, but we have to make a beginning somewhere. And this was the thing. And the interesting thing, of course, is the Million Book Project did not come out of thin air. Let me go to the next slide, which shows a video that was made in 1997. Can we roll the video, please? Go ahead.
The goal of the Universal Library is to make all authored works created since the beginning of time instantly available to anyone, anywhere in the world, in any language. Let's now take a look at some of the materials contained in the Universal Library and how to access them. We're looking at a high-resolution color image of a cactus flower from an antique botanical print. The original of this print is rare and fragile and is normally inaccessible to human beings. But through the Universal Library, it can be made available to researchers all over the world. To look at other material in the Universal Library, we just go back to the home page, looking at a different book. Here's one, for example, books by Charles Dickens. We can look at the full text of Oliver Twist and instantaneously access any chapter of the book. Begin reading, print the book out, whatever we would like to do with it. Through the Universal Library, we can access newspapers from all over the world. Here, for example, from the different continents, we can access a Japanese newspaper, the Japan Times. These are today's headlines, November 4th, 1997. If we want to look at a particular article, I just click on it and begin reading the full text from the Japan Times. Through the Universal Library, we can actually listen to music. Here, for example, some works by Mozart.
Let's stop there. This goes on, the link is there on the thing.
One of the more intriguing...
Stop, please. Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. So by 2007, we had about 2 million books were scanned in India and China. And Google has started a massive effort to scan books. Amazon and Google started providing access to digital books, but not free as envisioned by us earlier. Undaunted, Brewster kept on spreading the gospel of universal access to all knowledge. Today, the Open Library has over 5 million books and worthy of our admiration and support. Way to go, Brewster. Okay, so next slide, please. So I'll quickly go through a whole bunch of books. You can see the cover page here of Rig Veda. Next book, please. And this one is about wave theory that was published in 1823. Next slide, please. This is a Sanskrit book about from Kalidasa, poems, published in 1927. Next slide, please. It is an 1875 book on gems, jewels, coins, and metals. Next slide, please. It is a book in Tamil about, I can't even pronounce it, Mudalayaram Mulayam, and published in 1909. Next slide, please. Here is an Urdu book, not Arabic. It's Arabic script, but Urdu, published in 1919. Next slide, please. Notice we've been picking mostly books that we know are out of copyright because that they are pre-1923. And here's a book on 1876 in Arabic. Next slide, please, on metrology. Here is a book in Telugu going back to 1912. Next slide, please. Here is a book in Kannada going back to, we don't have the year here. I think it is there and probably the next page. Next slide, please. Here is a book about the fauna of British India, Ceylon and Burma, published in 1929. Next slide, please. And here's a book on Harijan, 1873. Next slide, please. And finally, the book on structure of molecules in French, which was in one of the Indian libraries that we were scanning. Next slide, please. So the research challenges we still face, are how do we provide access to billions of people who might be accessing such public libraries like the one Brewster has created? And how do we create an easy to use interface for billions who speak many different languages? And then how do we create a multilingual information retrieval system and translation and summarization facilities so that if I'm trying to read a French book, an automatic translation would appear on my screen, in my local language. All of these are still research problems. I'm hoping people at Google will solve them. They already have solutions to many of these, but the issue is to kind of make it broadly available. Next slide, please. And so the policy challenges are not only how do you deal with the copyright problem, but namely 5% of the books are out of copyright for sure. 92% of the books we can access now are out of print and in copyright. And only 3% are in print and in copyright. That means only about 3% of all the books are available on Amazon catalog today if we want to buy it on Kindle. And the rest of the books are not. And so we need a number of policy mechanisms to deal with it. I don't have time to go through them, and including compulsory licensing and digital submissions of National Archives. So basically, anyway, this was a talk we gave in 2003. So it's not as though we have solved all these problems. We still have to solve many of these problems, but I'm happy to have this opportunity to share the early beginnings of this project with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy. What an amazing collection of languages and books. And thank you for not stopping, but continuing to think about what the policy issues are that need to be solved as well.